I was halfway down the basement stairs when I heard the door slam behind me. The sound echoed through the concrete walls like a gunshot, and my heart stopped. I spun around, but the door was already closed, and through the narrow gap at the bottom, I could see shadows moving, multiple shadows. Laughter erupted from the other side, cruel and sharp, and I recognized every voice. Jessica's high-pitched cackle, Marcus's low, mocking chuckle, and worst of all, Daniel's voice, the one I'd trusted just 5 minutes ago when he'd smiled at me and said, "Hey, can you help me grab something from the basement real quick?" I was such an idiot. "Please," I called out, my voice cracking as I pressed my palms against the door. "This isn't funny. Let me out." "Oh, but it is funny." Jessica's voice dripped with venom through the wood. "You really thought Daniel liked you? That he wanted your help?" She burst into laughter again, and I heard several people join in. "God, you're even more pathetic than I thought." My face burned with humiliation. The concrete walls seemed to close in around me as reality crashed down. I'd been set up. Completely and utterly set up. And Daniel, who I'd spent the last 3 months crushing on, who I'd helped with chemistry homework, who I'd believed was different from the others, had led me down here like a lamb to slaughter. "Come on, guys," I tried again, hating how desperate I sounded. "Just open the door." "Not yet," Marcus said, and I could hear the smirk in his voice. "We're having too much fun. Besides, you need to learn your place, scholarship girl. You really thought you belonged at this party? You thought Daniel would actually be interested in someone like you?" The words hit like physical blows. Someone like you. I'd heard variations of that phrase since the day I'd arrived at Westbridge Academy 6 months ago, but it never hurt less. My clothes weren't designer. My parents weren't CEOs or politicians. I was here on merit, not money. And to people like Jessica and Marcus, that made me less than human. I should have seen this coming. I really should have. Let me rewind. My name is Emma Torres, and 6 months ago, my entire world changed when I received a full scholarship to Westbridge Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools on the East Coast. My mom cried when we got the letter. My dad kept saying it was my ticket to a better life. They weren't wrong. Westbridge had connections that could open any door, launch any career. But what they didn't tell me in that acceptance letter was that I'd be walking into a battlefield where wealth was armor and I showed up naked. From day one, I was marked as different. While other students arrived in chauffeur-driven cars, I took the bus. While they casually discussed their families' vacation homes in the Hamptons or Aspen, I worked a part-time job at the local coffee shop to help with expenses the scholarship didn't cover. I tried to keep my head down, focus on my studies, and avoid drawing attention to myself. But Jessica Montgomery made that impossible. Jessica was everything Westbridge valued. Beautiful, wealthy, connected, and cruel. Her father sat on the board of directors. Her mother was a fashion mogul. And she decided, for reasons I still didn't fully understand, that I was her personal project, someone to be humiliated, mocked, and reminded daily that I didn't belong. At first, it was small things. A whispered comment about my shoes. A laugh when I admitted I'd never been skiing. The way she'd wrinkle her nose when I walked past, as if I smelled bad. Then it escalated. She started spreading rumors. That I'd cheated on the entrance exam. That I was sleeping with teachers for better grades. That my scholarship was some kind of diversity quota, not actual merit. None of it was true. But truth didn't matter at Westbridge. What mattered was who had the power to control the narrative, and Jessica had all the power. Her inner circle, Marcus Chin, whose family owned half the real estate in the city, and Brianna Walsh, whose mother was a senator, backed up every lie. They made my life a daily humiliation. They'd trip me in hallways, pour water on my desk so my notes were ruined, take photos of me when I wasn't looking and post them with mocking captions. The teachers either didn't notice or didn't care. After all, the Montgomery family had funded the new science wing. But through it all, there was one person who seemed different. Daniel Harrison. Daniel was part of their world. Old money, connections, the works. But he'd always been kind to me. He'd smile in the hallways, make small talk before chemistry class. Once, when Jessica knocked my books out of my hands, he helped me pick them up while she rolled her eyes and walked away. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, not everyone at Westbridge was rotten. I started to believe that maybe he liked me. God, I was so stupid. It started 3 weeks ago when Daniel began seeking me out more often. He'd sit next to me in the library, ask me questions about the homework, even though his grades were fine. He'd compliment my ideas in class discussions. My heart would race every time he was near, and I'd catch myself daydreaming about what it might be like if someone like him could actually be interested in someone like me. Then, 2 days ago, he asked if I was coming to Marcus's party this weekend. I'd laughed it off at first. I don't really do the party scene, I'd said, which was a polite way of saying I'd never been invited and wouldn't be welcome if I showed up. You should come, Daniel had insisted, his green eyes warm and genuine. I'll be there. It'll be fun. Plus, you deserve to have some fun, Emma. You work too hard. The way he said my name made my stomach flip. Against my better judgment, I'd agreed. The party was exactly what I'd expected. A massive house with more square footage than my entire apartment building, parents conveniently away, alcohol flowing freely, and designer clothes everywhere I looked. I'd spent an hour paralyzed by social anxiety, nursing a soda in the corner and wondering why I'd come. Then Daniel found me. Hey, you made it. He'd seemed genuinely happy to see me, and for a moment, the knot in my chest loosened. We'd talked for 20 minutes about nothing important, music, a funny moment in class, his plans for college. He made me laugh. He listened when I talked. For the first time at Westbridge, I felt like maybe I could belong. That's when he'd asked me to help him grab something from the basement. I should have questioned why he needed help. I should have wondered why he glanced at Jessica and Marcus before leading me away. I should have noticed the way they'd stopped talking and watched us go, barely containing their smirks. But I didn't, because I wanted so desperately to believe that Daniel was genuine, that I'd finally found someone who saw me as a person, not a scholarship case or a social liability. Now, standing in this cold basement with their laughter echoing above me, I realized the truth I'd been too naive to see. This was all planned. Daniel had been playing me for weeks, building my trust, making me believe in something that was never real, and I'd fallen for it completely. Emma, 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 Jessica's voice sang through the door now, saccharine and poisonous. Did you really think Daniel fucking Harrison, would be into you? Do you have any idea how pathetic you've looked these past few weeks? Following him around like a lost puppy, lighting up every time he gave you attention? We've all been watching. We've all been laughing. My legs felt weak. I sank down onto the stairs, my hands shaking. Through the door, I could hear more voices now. The party had apparently gathered to witness my humiliation. I recognized at least a dozen people, all of them laughing, all of them entertained by my pain. It was a bet, Marcus announced, his voice carrying clearly. Daniel bet us $50 that he could get the scholarship girl to fall for him in under a month. Took him 3 weeks. Easiest money I've ever lost. The basement seemed to tilt. A bet. This was all a bet. Every kind word, every smile, every moment I'd treasured and replayed in my mind, all of it was theater. A performance designed to see just how gullible the poor girl could be. Show them the texts, Brianna said, barely containing her giggles. Oh my God, yes. Jessica squealed. Daniel, show them the texts. Through the door, I heard phones being passed around, and then an eruption of laughter even louder than before. My stomach turned to ice. What texts? What had he said about me? She's so easy to manipulate. Someone read aloud in a mocking voice. I think she actually believes I like her. She practically vibrates when I talk to her, another person read. This is almost too easy. I actually feel bad. Almost feel bad, Jessica corrected with a laugh. Only almost. Not enough to stop taking our money though, right Daniel? Hey, a bet's a bet, Daniel's voice said, and the casual cruelty in his tone shattered something in my chest. This was the same voice that had told me I worked too hard. That had said my ideas in class were brilliant. That had made me feel, for just a few weeks, like I mattered. I pressed my forehead against the cold concrete wall, willing myself not to cry. Not yet. Not where they could hear me. But tears burned behind my eyes anyway, and my throat felt like it was closing up. How could I have been so blind? How could I have misread everything so completely? Please, I tried one more time, my voice barely above a whisper. Just let me out. What's that? Marcus called. Can't hear you down there, scholarship girl. I said please let me out. The words came out as a shout now, raw and desperate, and I immediately regretted it because the laughter that followed was deafening. Oh, she's begging now, Jessica cooed. That's so cute. But you know what? I don't think we're done yet. You need to really understand your place, Emma. You need to understand that you don't belong here. Not at this party. Not at Westbridge. You're here on charity, and you should be grateful we even acknowledge your existence. She's right, Brianna chimed in. You're literally only here because the school needed to fill some quota. Do you think any of us would choose to spend time with you? Do you think Daniel would look at you twice if he passed you on the street? Each word was a knife, expertly placed to cause maximum damage. And the worst part was, I'd already thought all these things myself during my darkest moments. Every insecurity I'd ever had was being voiced back to me through this door, validated and amplified by a crowd of people who'd never seen me as anything more than entertainment. I stood up slowly, my legs trembling. I needed to find another way out. There had to be another exit, a window, something. I descended the rest of the stairs into the main basement area, a finished space with a pool table, a bar, and expensive furniture that probably cost more than my parents' annual rent. The overhead lights were off, but ambient lighting cast everything in shadows. That's when I heard footsteps above me. Not near the door, somewhere else in the house. Heavy footsteps. Adult footsteps. Marcus. A deep voice boomed from somewhere upstairs. Marcus Chen. What the hell is going on here? The laughter cut off instantly. The sudden silence was almost more terrifying than the mocking had been. Dad? Marcus's voice had lost all its confidence. You're not supposed to be. I mean, you said you wouldn't be back until tomorrow. I know what I said. Flight got cancelled. Good thing too, apparently. There was movement. Multiple sets of footsteps now. What are all these people doing in my house? And why do I smell alcohol? It's just a small gathering, Mr. Chen, Jessica said, her voice syrupy sweet in that way she used with adults. We were just studying and... Studying? Mr. Chen's voice dripped with disbelief. There are 50 teenagers in my living room. Music is blasting, and I can see liquor bottles from here. You think I'm an idiot? No, sir, of course not. We were just... Marcus stammered. Everyone out. Now. And Marcus, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about responsibility and trust. I heard chaos erupt upstairs, people scrambling, voices overlapping, the sounds of a party rapidly dispersing. In the confusion, I realized no one had remembered I was still locked in the basement. I ran back to the door and pounded on it. Hey, I'm still down here. Let me out. But my voice was drowned out by the commotion. I could hear Jessica's voice raised in protest, Brianna making excuses, people rushing for the exits. More footsteps thundered across the floor above me, but none came toward the basement door. Then I heard it, a woman's voice, crisp and authoritative. Marcus, is that the basement door? Why is it locked? It's not locked, it's just... Marcus started. There's a chair wedged under the handle, the woman said, and I realized she must be Mrs. Chen. Why would you block the basement door? Silence. Heavy, guilty silence. Is someone down there? Mrs. Chen's voice was sharp now. Hello? I called out, my voice cracking. Yes, I'm down here. They locked me in. I heard rapid footsteps approaching, then the sound of furniture being moved. The door handle jiggled, and suddenly the door swung open. Light flooded the stairwell, and I squinted against it. Standing in the doorway was an elegant woman in her 40s, her face a mixture of shock and fury. Behind her stood a tall man with the same bone structure as Marcus, Mr. Chen, obviously, and he looked absolutely livid. Who are you? Mrs. Chen asked, her tone softening when she saw my tear-stained face. Emma Torres, I managed, my voice shaking. I'm a student at Westbridge. They locked me down here as a joke. A joke? Mr. Chen's voice could have frozen lava. Marcus, get in here now. Marcus appeared behind his parents, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked genuinely scared. The smug confidence had evaporated completely. Jessica and Daniel hovered in the hallway behind him, and several other partygoers who hadn't managed to escape, yet stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. You locked someone in our basement? Mrs. Chen's voice was ice. You locked a young woman in a basement? Are you out of your mind? We were just messing around, Marcus said weakly. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. Not a big deal? Mr. Chen stepped forward, and Marcus actually flinched. You trapped someone in a confined space. Do you understand that's not just cruel, it's illegal? That's false imprisonment. That's a crime. I watched the color drain from Marcus's face. Behind him, Jessica and Daniel exchanged panicked glances. Mrs. Chen, I said quietly, can I please just go home? She turned to me, her expression immediately softening. Of course, sweetheart. But first, Tell me what happened. All of it. Something in her tone, maybe the genuine concern, maybe the fact that an adult was finally taking this seriously, broke through the walls I'd built. The whole story came tumbling out. The months of bullying, the rumors Jessica spread, the bet Daniel made, the plan to humiliate me tonight. I watched their faces as I spoke, watched the horror and disgust register on the adults' features, watched Marcus, Jessica, and Daniel shrink smaller and smaller with each word. "These are Westbridge students?" Mr. Chen asked when I finished, his voice dangerously quiet. I nodded. "Jessica Montgomery and Daniel Harrison, you said?" Mrs. Chen pulled out her phone. "I know both of those families. I also sit on several committees with Dr. Jameson. Dr. Jameson was the headmaster of Westbridge." "Mrs. Chen, please." Jessica's voice had lost all its venom, replaced by pure panic. "It was just a stupid prank. We didn't mean anything by it." "You didn't mean anything by locking someone in a basement? By making her think she was liked so you could humiliate her? By spreading lies about her for months?" Mrs. Chen's eyes were like steel. "I have a daughter your age. If someone did this to her, I would want to know. I would want consequences." "Mom, please," Marcus tried. "Can we just—" "You." Mr. Chen rounded on his son. "You don't get to speak right now. Do you understand what you've done? Not just tonight, all of it. Bullying, conspiracy, false imprisonment. The school will hear about this. The police might hear about this. And your mother and I will be having serious conversations about your future." The word police hit the group like an electric shock. Daniel, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke up. "Mr. and Mrs. Chen, with all due respect, I don't think we need to involve authorities over what was essentially just a high school prank. Emma is fine. No harm was actually done." "No harm?" I heard my own voice, stronger now, angrier. "You made me fall for you as a bet. You let me believe someone actually cared about me, and then you publicly humiliated me in front of half our class. You trapped me in a basement while everyone left, and you think no harm was done?" Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, he had nothing to say. Mrs. Chen put a hand on my shoulder. "Emma, dear, I need to ask you something important. Do you want to press charges? You would be completely within your rights to do so." The room went dead silent. I looked at their faces, Marcus, pale and sweating, Jessica, her perfect makeup running where tears had started, Daniel, his jaw clenched, Brianna, practically shaking, and the dozen or so other students who'd participated in my humiliation, all of them suddenly very interested in their shoes. I don't know," I admitted. "I just want it to stop. I just want them to leave me alone." "They will," Mr. Chen said firmly. "One way or another, they will. But Emma, you need to understand something. What they did tonight crosses a line. This isn't just mean, it's criminal behavior. And if you don't stand up for yourself, they'll do it to someone else." He was right. I knew he was right. How many other scholarship students would come after me? How many other people would Jessica target? How many other cruel bets would Daniel make? "I want to report it to the school," I said finally. "I want Dr. Jameson to know everything. And I want it documented, in case I decide to do more later." Mrs. Chen nodded approvingly. "Smart girl. I'll make sure that happens. In fact, I'll call him myself right now." She started dialing. "The rest of you, get out of my house. Now. And consider yourselves lucky that Emma is being more merciful than you deserve." The exodus was swift and silent. Jessica shot me one last look. Not angry, not even scared, but something else. Something that almost looked like fear mixed with grudging respect. Within 2 minutes, the house was empty except for me, the Khans, and Marcus, who stood miserably in the corner while his mother spoke in clipped tones to Dr. Jameson on the phone. Mr. Chen drove me home himself, refusing to let me take the bus. On the drive, he talked about his own experience being the first in his family to go to an elite school, the discrimination he'd faced, and how he'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be silent. "Money and connections don't make you better than anyone," he said as we pulled up to my apartment building. "They just make you louder. But loud doesn't mean right. You remember that." When I walked into our apartment, my mom took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. I told her everything. And instead of being upset that I'd gone to a party, she was upset on my behalf. My dad, who rarely showed strong emotion, actually called Dr. Jameson's office that night and left a voicemail demanding a meeting. Over the weekend, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no social media notifications. The quiet was almost eerie after months of constant harassment. Monday morning came too quickly. I almost didn't go to school. My mom offered to let me stay home, but something in me refused to hide. I'd spent 6 months trying to be invisible, trying not to make waves. Where had that gotten me? When I walked through Westbridge's gates, I felt dozens of eyes on me. But the whispers this time weren't mocking. They were curious, uncertain. Word had spread. Everyone knew about the party, the basement, the cons calling the headmaster. I saw Jessica by her locker, surrounded by her usual group, but something was different. Her smile looked forced, and when she saw me, she quickly looked away. Marcus walked past without making eye contact at all. Brianna actually moved to the other side of the hallway to avoid crossing my path. Third period, I was called to Dr. Jameson's office. The headmaster was a stern man in his 60s with silver hair and the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter automatically. But when I entered his office, his expression was surprisingly kind. "Miss Torres, please sit down." I sat, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. "I had a very interesting phone call this weekend," he began. "From Mrs. Chen, from your father, and actually from 2 other students who were at that party, and felt compelled to come forward with their own accounts of what happened." My eyebrows shot up. Other students had come forward? "What happened to you was unacceptable," Dr. Jameson continued. "Not just Friday night, but the ongoing harassment you've endured since arriving at Westbridge. I'm ashamed to say that it took this incident for it to fully come to my attention, but now that it has, there will be consequences." He outlined them methodically. Marcus was suspended for 2 weeks and removed from the student council. His family would be required to make a substantial donation to an anti-bullying program as a condition of his continued enrollment. Jessica was suspended for 1 week, removed from her position as class president, and put on academic probation. Any future violations would result in expulsion, regardless of her father's position on the board. Daniel was suspended for 1 week and banned from all sports teams for the remainder of the semester. Brianna and 3 others who'd actively participated in the harassment received detention and mandatory counseling sessions. But more than punishments, Dr. Jameson said, leaning forward, "I want to make sure you feel safe here, Miss Torres. I'm assigning you a faculty mentor. If anyone bothers you, anyone at all, you report it directly to me. We're also implementing a new scholarship student support program, so you won't be alone in navigating this environment." I felt something loosen in my chest, something that had been wound tight for 6 months. "Thank you," I managed. "Don't thank me. You stood up for yourself. That takes courage." "And Emma?" He smiled slightly. "Your chemistry teacher tells me you're the top student in her class. Your English teacher says your essays are college level. You earned your place here. Don't ever let anyone make you forget that." The next few weeks were strange. Jessica and her circle gave me a wide berth, and most other students treated me with a sort of cautious respect. I wasn't popular, but I wasn't invisible anymore either. A few other scholarship students started sitting with me at lunch, sharing their own stories of subtle discrimination and outright bullying. Together, we started a support group. Just a small thing at first, but it grew. Daniel tried to apologize once, catching me after chemistry class. "Emma, look, I'm really sorry about what happened. I was a jerk, and I know I hurt you. Is there any way?" "No," I said simply. "There isn't." He looked surprised, like he'd expected me to accept his apology and move on. But I wasn't interested in making him feel better about his choices. That wasn't my responsibility. Jessica never apologized. But 2 months later, when she was passed over for early admission to Yale, supposedly her dream school, I heard through the grapevine that Dr. Jameson had included information about the incident in her disciplinary record that went to colleges. Her father's donations couldn't erase that. Marcus, on the other hand, seemed genuinely changed. After his suspension, he came back quieter, more thoughtful. He joined the new anti-bullying committee and actually advocated for more scholarship opportunities. Whether it was genuine remorse or just self-preservation, I didn't know and didn't particularly care. But at least he wasn't actively making anyone's life miserable anymore. The best revenge, I learned, wasn't some dramatic confrontation or elaborate scheme. It was simply refusing to disappear. It was continuing to excel academically, earning respect through my work rather than my wallet. It was watching my tormentors face real consequences while I built genuine friendships with people who valued substance over status. By the end of the year, I'd made the honor roll. I'd been accepted into a competitive summer research program. I'd helped launch a mentorship initiative that paired new scholarship students with upperclassmen. And I'd learned something crucial. The people who try to make you feel small do so because they're terrified you'll realize you're actually stronger than they are. The basement incident became a turning point. Not just for me but for Westbridge itself. The administration implemented new policies on bullying, hazing, and creating inclusive environments. It wasn't perfect. Old money and old attitudes die hard. But it was progress. I still took the bus to school. I still worked at the coffee shop. I still wore clothes from Target while surrounded by designer labels. But none of that defined me anymore. What defined me was how I'd survived the worst they could throw at me and came out stronger. Senior year, when college acceptances came in, I got into my top choice with a full ride. Jessica got her rejection letter from Yale the same day. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. My success wasn't about her failure. It was about my refusal to let them break me. At graduation, as I walked across the stage to accept my diploma and my scholarship awards, I caught sight of the cons in the audience. Mrs. Chen gave me a thumbs up, and Mr. Chen nodded with what looked like pride. They'd shown me that not everyone with privilege uses it as a weapon. Some use it as a shield for others. Daniel avoided my eyes. Jessica stared straight ahead. Marcus actually gave me a small, almost apologetic nod. And me? I smiled. Not for them, but for myself. For the girl who'd been locked in a basement and told she didn't belong. For the girl who'd decided that belonging wasn't about being accepted by people who didn't matter. It was about accepting yourself and finding your own tribe. That night, after all the ceremonies and celebrations, I stood outside my apartment building looking at the acceptance letter from MIT that I'd received months earlier. Full scholarship, research opportunities, a chance to build something real. I thought about that basement, about how dark and cold it had felt, about how alone I'd been, and I realized that sometimes the lowest points in your life are actually launching pads. They show you exactly who you are and what you're capable of surviving. I never saw most of those people again after graduation. We scattered to different colleges, different lives, different futures. But I carried the lessons with them. That cruelty says more about the perpetrator than the victim. That standing up for yourself, even when you're terrified, is always worth it. That the people who matter will reveal themselves when things get hard. And that basements, both literal and metaphorical, don't have to be permanent. Sometimes you just need to find your own way to open the door. In the end, arrogance crumbles, but dignity survives. And I survived. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.